Chapter 11 Voyage. A sense of magic permeated the air, and I took it in with all my senses, known and unknown. As I scanned the hall, like I always did, I saw my friend Diana just a little way over in the front row at stage left. I waved at her, and she waved at me to come over, with that big, beautiful smile of hers that we all adored. I decided to go say hello when I noticed that she was talking with someone on the other side of the barricade. Interesting, I thought, and told my friends that I was going over to see her. I carefully moved through the crowd, saying the ever-popular German phrase, "Entschuldigen Sie bitte," until I arrived where she was for the night, closer to the center on stage left. She looked like a goddess, as she always did, petite with olive skin and rich brown hair, self-contained, laid out in jeans, a cool blue shirt, and freak boots. She was with some other friends that we both knew, although I didn't know them as well as my crew at stage right. I took in the scene, feeling eyes watching me. I greeted her with a quick hug and said, "How's it going?" "Fucking great," she said. "Yeah, this is gonna be amazing," I half whispered, almost like a secret, in complete agreement with her. Her deep brown eyes sparkled with an inner fire, and her hair, perfectly flipped back all the way down below her shoulders, framed the perfection of joy in her face. Then, as we were talking amongst ourselves in quiet anticipation, the man that she had been speaking with earlier reappeared from backstage. She lit up again with a big smile. He looked at me and said, "Now, who's this lovely lady?" Diana looked over at me, grinning, as she said with real excitement, "Bindi, this is Cheri, a really cool friend from school." Bindi was warm, with soulful brown eyes and creamy chocolate skin. He looked to be a lot older than I was, with a touch of gray in his close-kept curly black hair. There was a kindness emanating from his face that burst into radiant warmth when he smiled. I thought that he might be in his late 30s, though I couldn't really tell. He was open, honest, and pleasingly direct. "Pleased to meet you, Cheri. Are you American too?" he asked in a voice that was rich with joie de vivre. Apparently, we were a novelty that the crew didn't expect to find overseas. "Yes," I responded and smiled, continuing. "I didn't understand your name. What is it again?" "Well, my name is George, but you can call me Bindi, or either one. It's one of my nicknames around here." "Where are you from in the States?" he queried with real interest. "New Orleans," I said with the slightest remainder of my New Orleans Southern drawl spilling out. "That's way down south," he said, smiling again and taking me in with the utmost respect, reading me with real discernment. "Have you been?" I asked him. "No, can't say that I have. I'm from California," he added. "It's a long way from there to New Orleans." I agreed with a nod. "Yeah, it is." "Have you ever been to Cali?" he asked. "One time on a family vacation a long time before we moved here," I said. I asked him about himself, feeling that we were somehow connected on a level playing field because we were vibing so well together. He told us that most of the crew had worked for Tellard, an amazing rock band, before the crash that had taken several of the band members' lives. This was an intense expression of sorrow for him that reflected in his face and eyes. Reflecting with him, I expressed that I was deeply sorry for his loss and felt that it must have been such a tragedy for those closest to the band. He thanked me, saying that Voyage had been great, hiring so many of the crew from Tellard, and that they treated their road crew just like gold. He said, "Well, you two ladies enjoy the show. I have to get to work, but I'll be back in a little while." Diana looked at me and said, "He's so cool." "Yeah, he is." I smiled because I could feel it coming straight from his heart. He disappeared into the dark, slipping into backstage land, while I reflected on the immediate connection we shared. There are those times in life where you meet someone and just feel an instantaneous kind of bond with them, and this was one. The unlikely pairing of military brats and rock and roll road soldiers, or roadies, made perfect sense. We both understood the need for instant human relatedness, bypassing the usual social protocols and getting straight to the feeling of familiarity. He returned almost as quickly as he had gone, saying he wanted to hang out with us for the show. He was seasoned and had endured much throughout his life. A traveling gypsy touring with a rock band, and he obviously loved every minute of it. When he returned, I asked him what he did as part of the road crew directly, because I honestly knew nothing about it and was curious to learn more. As it turned out, he was the tour manager in charge of getting everything set up and broken down day after day and night after night on a tight touring schedule with little to no breaks. "Wow," I said, "that's an intense job." "Indeed it is," he said, adding that the show was about to start. I glanced over at my friends on stage right and saw Joshua watching me intently. I knew that he could tell something was going on, and he didn't like it. I said, "I should get back over to where I was." Bindi said, "Why don't you just stay right here with us and watch the show?" Diana agreed. "Yeah, you can stay here." "Okay," I acquiesced, and even though I didn't know it because of my innocence, I was being given the royal treatment by the head of the road crew. The anticipation of the audience fired electricity as though painted by invisible fingers in waves through the air. As the lights went down, the crowd went crazy because everyone knew this was the beginning of the show, and the rush they were waiting for had now arrived. It could be tasted and felt like a distilled elixir suspended in space as it permeated the venue with excitement. Everyone had gathered here for one reason: to enjoy themselves through the medium of music. And for me, that was the genesis of love. It was exhausting, always having to wear the mask of complacency, bound by routine, hiding my feelings, fostering inscrutability. I was here for the time of my life, and it was a culmination point for me in reward and release. Even if only for the moment, the heavy burden that I still carried in my heart and on my shoulders bared on this special night would be lifted. My face was filled with wonder and slight fatigue from a long day at school, and even though I had eaten, it may not have been enough to sustain me for several hours. My excitement, however, would. Bindi looked at me thoughtfully and asked if I wanted to sit up on the barricade, to which I replied, yes. He carefully and respectfully lifted me up, helping me to get situated so that I was comfortable. It was so much better than standing, and now, when the vibration of sound waves passed through me, there was no one to see my expression, because I was facing the stage with my back to the crowd. It was just me and the band, so I could let go and be free, immersed in the music, letting the tide wash over me. The show lights went up in a rainbow of colors, one after the other, as the band appeared before us, ready to play. My heart soared, and for the moment I could not have been happier than this. This was it. And then it started, the sound, and I rode each wave, raising myself higher and higher. I immediately began to observe the singer, watching every move, every nuance, hoping to make eye contact, because then I would know what I needed to know. I would see it in his eyes if it were there. I was looking for that deep feeling of interconnectedness, when two hearts recognize each other and begin to glow in the light of that recognition. I knew the feeling that I was looking for from my dream. I just didn't know where I would find it. There seemed to be an unplanned obstacle between myself and the singer, in the form of the lead guitarist, Caesar, who was in fact amazing. His technique was melodic and soulful, striking the chords of heaven, where the music of the spheres fell down like rain from the sky. There was an inexplicable high as I felt the audience's energy merging with the band's, spiraling ever higher. Each time that I tried to get a good look at Anthony on stage right, in front of Joshua no less, Caesar would amp up his performance a notch. As it happened repeatedly, a pattern emerged, and there was no doubt that it was deliberate. I sat there on the barricade next to my new friend Bindi and sang out every word to every song, feeling incredible. But the more that I tried to make eye contact with Anthony, the more Caesar played to me. Feeling shy and somewhat awkward, I tried desperately not to notice as Caesar got down on his knees directly in front of me, soloing feverishly. Not noticing proved to be impossible, because while he was there on his knees, he stared right at me. There was maybe 5 or 6 feet between us, and from that vantage point, it was unmistakable. Even after having been stared at for nearly 2 years on the U-Bahn, I felt somewhat unnerved by it. Anthony was one of those performers that focused on something at the back of the hall to stay centered during a show. And so it began, the push and pull of Caesar and Anthony, a passion play that left me feeling both humbled and profoundly confused. My eyes stayed intently on Anthony during the entire show, except for the moments that I was distracted by Caesar's Herculean efforts to get my attention. Anthony didn't even once look at the people in front of him, as was his method. Caesar's annoyance flashed across his countenance like lightning, that I was watching Anthony and not him, and I was baffled by it. Anthony's singing was flawless, silky, and otherworldly, as the harmonies soared behind him and the music was interwoven perfectly inside time. By the end of the show, my disappointment couldn't counteract the high, even though it was over. As I prepared myself for the inevitable letdown, Bindi turned to me and Diana and said, "Why don't you stay around for a while?" She and I looked at each other, eyes gleaming, and said in unison, "Okay." I felt a new sense of anticipation coming over me, bordering on thrilling as we waited for yet another surprise to emerge from the carnival of life. Tina headed our way, and we asked her to stay, but she declined because her dad was waiting for her at home. The Festhalle emptied out, and we watched as our friends exited the building, waving at our crew as they left. Diana and I became fascinated together, and over the moon, witnessing the incredible spectacle that was a road crew breaking down a show so the rock and roll circus could move on to the next venue. About 20 minutes after the hall was emptied, someone dressed in white with eyes on fire emerged from the backstage area. He was about my height, with dark, wavy hair and a smile that danced along his lips. It was Caesar, and he was literally sneaking around, trying to hide from the band's manager, Rennie Rendell, as he later explained. He crept out like he was in a spy movie, making a rendezvous as he approached us, looking side to side. Dramatically, he placed his index finger over his lips in the gesture of shh, coming ever closer. When he looked into my eyes, he was glowing as he said, "Hello, ladies," and we responded in kind. Bindi made the introductions. No longer able to contain it, his smile exploded, and he asked for a cigarette from Diana. He didn't assume that we should just know who he was, even though at this point it was obvious, especially to me after that performance. He took the cigarette and asked for a light that was supplied by Diana. While taking a drag, he looked around somewhat guiltily to make sure that no one would report him to Rennie, saying as he shot a look at me, "I'm not supposed to smoke because I have to sing." "Oh, that makes sense," I said. "If our manager sees me, I'll get in trouble for it," he said, smiling. He was lit up like the 4th of July, even though it was September. Satisfied that he wouldn't be reported, he looked back and forth at myself and Diana while asking, "So, what are you two ladies doing this evening? Would you like to come to a party?" There was silence as the floor dropped out from under our feet. We smiled and turned to look at each other, eye to eye, playing with our answer. We must have been quite a sight standing there, a few inches between us, as we started our internal dialogue out loud. What unfolded was one of the most entertaining moments of my life. That was so good it could have been rehearsed, but it was sheer improvisation. "I don't know. Did you have any plans after the show?" I asked her, pretending to wonder. Well, there was this one party that we were going to go to, she replied, looking up at the ceiling. I drew it out, feigning puzzlement. Oh yeah, that one, I responded, nodding, biting my bottom lip a little bit, hitting the ball back to her. But you know, she went on, I think it wasn't going to be all that great. I think you're right, I added emphatically. Anything else? Not that I can think of, she said, looking at the ceiling again. You? No. I looked up, paused, and shook my head from side to side, exaggerating ever so slightly. At this point, we had everyone's undivided attention, Caesar, Bindi, and passing roadies, as they all wanted to hear the answer. So, you want to go to this one? I asked, already knowing the answer. Yeah, why not, she said. As if on cue, we both turned our heads to face Caesar at the exact same time, saying in unison, Yeah, okay, we'll go. As though it was every day that we were invited to party with rock stars. Grinning from ear to ear, Caesar seemed as entertained by us as we were by ourselves. We obliged and smiled back. He excused himself, saying that he had to go or he'd be in trouble because someone was waiting for him, saying, I'll see you later at the party. We said our goodbyes and took a walk backstage at Bindi's request. He was a large, steady man and took some equally large strides. I kept up as I walked to his left, owning the hallway, boots echoing underneath the fluorescent lights. I felt strangely at home here, like this was where I was meant to be, walking around backstage by invitation with the amazingly cool guy in charge. He looked sideways at me, saying, Those are some mighty fine boots you're wearing. They're pretty big for such a little lady. Thank you, I responded. My mother gave them to me. In pure Bindi fashion, he then began to describe Caesar's guitar tech, Lucas, saying, You know we call him Eagle Eye because every show night he scans the venue to find the most beautiful lady in the house. When he finds her, he points her out to the rest of us. We call her the Queen of the Night. And tonight, that lady was you, Cheri. Bindi smiled as he talked. I glanced at him skeptically, sideways, not really knowing how to respond. It's not nice to tease a lady like that. I don't believe it. He responded quite honestly, Oh, it's true, all right, in an authentic tone of voice. Bindi glanced at my jeans as we walked, leading me to the next conclusion, saying, And that's a beautiful dress you're wearing, too. So you are wearing jeans under it. He emphasized the word are, as though not wearing jeans under it to a concert was an actual option. Of course I am, I said firmly and emphatically. He said in a highly informative and respectful way, You know, Cheri, we weren't sure if you had anything on under that dress. We just thought you were wearing that dress and those boots, and that's all. You've got to be fucking kidding me, I thought briefly, gold cross sparkling around my neck, warding off mortification. Of course I am wearing jeans under the dress. What kind of girl do you think I am? I asked, with my voice slightly rising, chastising, maybe sounding just a smidge like Marilyn Monroe. I was being playful, though feeling a bit shocked, so I queried further, not completely sure if I really wanted to know, but it seemed important to find out. So I asked him, Why on earth would you think that I wasn't wearing anything under the dress? He responded, Because in the stage lights we could see right through it to your silhouette, and we couldn't tell if you were wearing jeans or not. He was surprisingly forthcoming without being judgmental at all. I felt immediately embarrassed and somewhat horrified by this bit of news, but also understood that he was, in fact, being protective of me. I had no idea that in being so close to the stage, that the stage lights would reveal all of me through such an intricately woven print fabric straight from Mother India. The pattern disappeared in the lights, and my jeans were so tight that they didn't even show an outline. It definitely looked like just me in the dress and the boots. I quickly flew into action, knowing that I could not attend a party with the consensus being that I was only wearing a see-through dress and boots. Tina had already gone, fearing the wrath of her father if she stayed to play with us, and she was wearing my shirt. I had no idea, I said. I am gonna need a t-shirt. Can you find me a t-shirt to change into, please, and set everyone straight? Yes, I can, Cheri, he said warmly and reassuringly. He turned and told someone from the crew, find this lovely lady a t-shirt. And it was done like quicksilver because he commanded respect. Like the captain of the guard, Bindi and Diana went down the hall while I slipped into the bathroom to change. The t-shirt was deep green, and there was nothing at all special about it, but I no longer looked to be naked under my dress. It's amazing what you can be grateful for, so I was happy to be in my boots, the green tea, and my favorite jeans for this night. I had a moment to register the progression of events, and it went something like this. It's really happening. I am backstage with my favorite band in the world, and I am going to their private party later at the Frankfurt Continental Hotel. I felt an excited yet calm, tingling sense of lucidity washing over me, like a gentle wave on the beach. It seemed like I belonged there because I did. These were music people, and so was I. Having grown up in a family of singers, it was in my blood. There was a kinship already being established, as I was being protected and looked after by the guy in charge. I was being taken in by Voyage under the protective guardian wing of Bindi, just like I had been taken in by my friends in Frankfurt, and a new sense of belonging prevailed. These people formed a bond with each other unlike any other, except maybe military brats. I wasn't being treated like a groupie, no. I was being treated like a family member, or a VIP, even though I still didn't really understand it on a rational level. All systems were go, and it just felt right to continue on with the beautiful experience that presented itself to me as it unfolded. The situation with the Major had given me precision, insight, and foresight, so I allowed myself to surrender to what was before me, knowing full well that I would take whatever measures necessary to protect myself and Diana if the need arose. I was used to connecting with people on my wavelength, easily and authentically, without a lot of BS to wade through. As tuned in as I was, there was nothing to prepare me for what would eventually emerge from the dark, cold underbelly of the music world that left so many lives destroyed in its wake. There was no way to understand the deeper jungle of despair, fueled by the insane pressures and demands of the entertainment industry, until I walked through it myself as an observer. Being who I was, I paid close attention to every detail while taking notes for future reference, because I wanted to be a singer. Music was, to me, the inherent fragile beauty held within the heart of all things, good and true, interwoven throughout the tapestry of eternity. The musical artist emerged as the lotus flower from the detritus of the music industry that would take no prisoners. The lotus was born into the day through the miracle of creation by reaching up to the light of the sun from the ugliness and filth inherent in the deepest waters of human tragedy, suffering, and affliction. Greed, avarice, lust, and jealousy were all there to give rise to the life of the lotus.